colleague in the back, Tina Logston. She teaches music history, but she's also a flutist. So, yeah. So, Linda has a website, so if you want to look at lindachatterton.com, and you can see all the fabulous things that she's done, and I just think her bio is also in the program. If you didn't get a program, it's there, so you can read that. But if you'd like to take notes today, you can get out some paper.
So I wanted to just say a few things about myself. So this is the title of my talk, which I've been doing for more than 20 years now, is called "It Sounded Better at Home," because we can all relate to that. And that was kind of the first thing that popped into my head when I started doing these presentations and workshops. Like Dr. Albers said, my name is Linda Chatterton. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I grew up in Wisconsin. And just to give you a little bit of a history of how I came to do these talks as kind of an extension of my performing. I grew up in a small town of about 10,000 people. And I was, I guess you could say, one of the little music stars. So I did more and more advanced, and you start doing more and more things, and you have more and more opportunities. That as the stakes got higher, the consistency of my good performances went down. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it just kind of collapsed, and I didn't know how to fix it. And my high school private flute teacher was wonderful in that he gave me this book on creative visualization that was written by a psychologist. And he said, well, this helps me with my golf game. This will help you with performing. So I kind of used that for help. And through college, through being a young professional, I was having sort of the same issues. And so working through all of that, where it's not just getting a blue ribbon as a fifth grader and some great positive reinforcement, it was winning things in order to get a concerto opportunity or concert management or something. So very high stakes, trying to play on demand at a very high level. How does one do that? And so that's how I came to that. I had, for a while, double majored in music and psychology because I'm really interested in psychology and what makes people tick. So a lot of it is, I feel the stuff that I impart is, yes, it's a reflection of what I've learned, but I think also what I want to do for you guys, regardless if you want to go into music as performers or educators, but I think also just as people, because at some point you might want to stand up in front of people and give a speech, or just to stand up for something that you believe in. How do you do that in an audience under some kind of pressure? So I'm going to throw out some ideas, things that worked for me and things that have worked for my students and other performers. If you have any questions, please let me know. I've done a fair amount of research, and I have a lot of experience, so I can give you some ideas and things to think about for your own sort of thinking in clinics and workshops and things like that. The concert that I'm hoping, if you have time, you'll come for, actually has two official U.S. premieres. So we gave the world premiere of a piece by Dorothy Hindman in Vienna a couple weeks ago. So this is the official U.S. premiere here, which is really fabulous because she's a wonderful composer. We are doing the U.S. premiere of a Viennese composer named Stefan Pezel, and they're kind of jazz-influenced pieces. So we did those in Vienna too. And then we finally, after many years, we are doing the Kentucky premiere of a Kentucky composer named Brian Syack. He lives in California now, but when he was a young composer starting out, he wrote us a piece. He lived in Kentucky and was a professor at not this university, but another university in Kentucky. And he wrote us a piece called Kentucky Folk Songs. We just love it, and it's based on his time here. So this is finally, after many moons, is going to happen. So that's what I do. Okay, so step one, I think, in tabs on it is like not anything that any of us like really want to do because it's a lot of work, but it's know the music. It's know the music really, really well, which means it's a lot of hard work. There are 5 ways to learn music. You cannot just learn the music by reading the music. I mean, it's great, and it's gonna be great in the practice room or like when you're by yourself. Don't necessarily close my eyes and like read the music in my head, but I always have a visual backup copy. 2, aural. What does it sound like? That seems pretty obvious. I have a fair amount of students that I've had over the years that start with Suzuki playing, and they have a really well-developed sense of ear, that they can hear things really well. But what you don't want to do is get that so honed that the only way that you can play a piece of music that you see is like to have somebody play it for you. And that tells me that that sense is developed to the detriment of some of the other ways to learn music. But what does it sound like? 3, kinesthetic. So we all probably can play B-flat scale without even thinking about it. So getting things into muscle memory. Most of the time when I'm performing, that is my primary thing. So it's having the music learned so well that you can just go on autopilot, because I've developed the habit of getting everything in a kinesthetic sense. I've had many students over the years, that is kind of their primary thing, like you learn by doing, right? So those 3 are kind of like the top 3, because we have people who are like primarily visual learners, people who learn by hearing, and people who learn by doing. So you kind of, for music, to have it really, really secure, need to kind of have that really solid, like all 3 across the board. Number 4 and 5 are kind of the ones that no one necessarily really wants to do because it requires a little bit of extra work. Number 4, have a really good harmonic theoretical understanding of the music. That means, what key is it in? What's the composer saying? What are the themes? Does it modulate? Like, what are the chords? How is it structured? And that's why it's really important to do the work, pay attention in like music theory, like history. What's the historical background? Like, why did this person write it like that? That takes a lot of kind of digging around. And then the 5th one is one that's called solfege, like being able to sing it. And this is one that I resisted for a long time as a student because I'm not a singer. And I'm bad at it. And I kind of felt like, if I'm a flutist, if I knew how to sing, I'd be a singer. But what I discovered when I first started teaching kids as a young professional, and I was just teaching hours and hours, that it was very laborious to pick up my flute and kind of demonstrate, so I would just start singing, and I actually developed it that way. And I really feel like there's something important about like being able to sing the pitches and internalizing them in your body that makes it sort of, the music settle in. And I haven't really come up with a great way in English to describe that fully, but I just know that when I started doing that on a regular basis, it improved my ear, it improved my sense of line and direction, it improved my sense of feeling the music. So I would say if you can learn the piece that you're preparing like on 4 or 5 of those solidly, you got the music down. Okay. Anybody have any questions so far about what I said? Nope. Okay. Step 2, as a general idea overlay, is beat into your head that performing is not the same as practicing. Performing is not the same as practicing. It's a skill, and like any skill, the more you do it, the better it gets. But it's a separate skill. It's a separate thing. So if you think that if you can just be by yourself playing and practicing and then get in front of other humans where the atmosphere changes, and depending on, some people are natural performers, some people aren't, and it doesn't necessarily mean that people who aren't natural performers don't have just as valid a voice and don't deserve to be on stage or don't deserve, this, that, or the other thing. That's completely false. It just means that you have to work a little bit differently in order to get your voice across. So what really helped me when I was doing all of these competitions and preparing for stuff, and nobody like really honestly loves doing competitions or auditions because you're being judged, right? So, and you could even say like, you know, an audience like a big concert. I mean, I can't even like tell you how many concerts I've played where you're just like, there's, you know, you're jet lagged. It's like pitch dark out because you're like up in like by the Arctic Circle or wherever, and you're just like, why did I do this to myself? But you know, it's kind of like it always bounces back. Like you have the control to do it. Like nobody like forces you to do these things, so you have to kind of figure out like what to do to make it the best moment possible. And what really helps me is just to think of like all of the positive experiences that I've had, so that when you are in sort of an unfamiliar situation or you're completely exhausted, or you know there's other things that are kind of pulling energy away from you, that you can draw, you can have that energy. So I do a lot of house concerts. I play a lot for friends and family who really are supportive, and they can give valuable feedback. Really kind colleagues who will say, you know, this sounds amazing, this you might need to work on. Play just in front of people before you get to the jury or the recital or the audition or something like that. And that way you're gonna have a lot of positive experiences to sort of fall back on, so that when you do get into something that might be a little bit more nerve-wracking, you can use that to anchor you. One of the things that I've found, which is sort of strange, but it kind of makes sense, is if you don't have people that you can sort of like grab to like listen to you, is just simply record yourself. And just the idea of having like this device that you know is like capturing everything is enough of a like tweak to like make you a little bit more self-conscious, to kind of, it'll show you where the cracks are in your performance that you may not have noticed when you were just like in your room practicing. So I think there are two kind of manifestations of things, performance anxiety, that kind of get in our way, and I'm gonna kind of pull them apart and kind of tackle them. And I think the main thing is like sort of the physical aspects of it, like when you're under pressure and getting anxious, and then the mental aspects. And the two can kind of help each other, as in, I'm giving a performance, this is like really exciting and amazing. Or they can feed off each other in a negative way. We're like, why am I doing this to myself? So as we know, it's an adrenaline thing, and it can be adrenaline excitement or adrenaline, you know, I feel like I'm ready to die. And so if you can kind of tackle the physical aspects of it and sort of the mental aspects of it, so that neither one of them kind of has a stranglehold on the other, that's very helpful. So I think what I'll do is just talk about some of the physical symptoms, just to give you some exercises that you can do. Most of you are flutists, yes. So we have a good advantage, because as what we have to do, the mechanism to create a good flute sound, is kind of one of the same things that you can do to kind of alleviate overabundance of adrenaline, and that is the kind of breathing. So there is a nerve called the vagus nerve that goes through your diaphragm up your spinal cord. When that gets stimulated, that contradicts the extra adrenaline that's going through your body. How do we stimulate that nerve? We do deep breathing. So it's why people do yoga, and teach themselves to breathe down here instead of up here. So I think, have you guys had this great breathing exercise yet, where you're kind of, yeah, that gives you great audio. I will, for all the people who aren't familiar or haven't had it reinforced enough by 17 different teachers, there's a great breathing exercise that if you're breathing correctly, that means your throat is open and you're breathing from down here. So breathing bad, you're up here, you get this. Breathing good, you got a low sound. That's super valuable. You can kind of see my body is expanding out. So that's great to practice. I'm trying to think, like, when was the last time, I mean, I know, like, when I was in college, we used to do that a lot backstage. I guess now I've just gotten used to it, that I just don't do it anymore. I know, like, as a young professional, on stage, one of the kind of moments where I was like, I need to think about this differently, but I would start off really strong, and then, like, halfway through the concert I would get really tired, and I kept thinking, relax my face, relax my face, relax my face. And essentially what it was is that I wasn't breathing correctly. So as soon as I kind of pulled away the thought of, like, relaxing this and just breathe, everything else was fine after that. So that worked for me. I think what you have to do is kind of see, like, how those kind of things work for you, like how you react when you're under pressure or anxiety. If it's a breathing kind of thing, that will slow your heart rate down. You can practice by, doing jumping jacks or running up and down stairs or something to get your heart rate going. And then you can either do that if you need an oral cue of what that sounds like, or, I just think expand my body out, and then I'll naturally. I think also a thing to think about is flutists, everything is up here, which kind of doesn't help the matter, because when you're tight, everything is up here. You have to really think about everything is down here. Another thing to think about, I'm just going to throw this out here, is that your center of gravity is 2 inches below your belly button and 2 inches in your body. And it kind of helps to think, not necessarily that you're breathing down there, because obviously your lungs are up higher, but it's more just that the center of your body's weight is kind of grounded a little bit more. Also, you can kind of help yourself release some tension by thinking of the weight kind of evenly balanced between the balls and the heels of your feet, so that you're not rocking back on your heels, that it's kind of just loose. I work with an Alexander technique teacher, which is all about the kind of body positioning and stuff, and I had a lot of this, kind of rocking back. So again, flutists have a tendency to do that, locked legs backwards. So kind of think about that. My teacher, when I was working, she would have me, like, kind of go like this and walk around and play, which I'm not going to do for you tonight because it looks kind of dorky, but you can kind of, like, practice that. The other thing that you could do, because I think a lot of people start getting tension where they get sort of nervous and they don't know how to relax that, is to do a progressive relaxation exercise. Does anybody know what that is or done it? Okay, we're going to do just a little progressive relaxation exercise just so you can kind of wrap your heads around that and see if that might help you. So we're going to practice in kind of a succession, tightening muscle groups and then relaxing them while we're doing this sort of deep breathing. So if everyone would like to close their eyes, we're going to do some deep breathing. So we're going to close your eyes and we're going to inhale and feel your body expand out. So you're going to be very relaxed. Allow air to run into your body. Fill up, hang out, and exhale. I'm going to try this one more time with a big inhale. Feel your body expand. Air coming into your lungs, filling up your lungs. Let that go. And then exhale out all the air. And notice how that feels. And on this next inhale, why don't you take your right hand and you're going to clench your hand into a really tight fist. Really strong. All of your muscles, all of your bones are really rock solid and tight. Notice how this feels. Hang on to that for a moment. And then on the exhale, release all of that tension. Let your fingers just sort of melt back away from your palm. And notice how it feels. And let's take another big inhale. Hold that. And exhale. And take another huge inhale. Fill your body up with air. And On the next inhale, why don't you shrug both of your shoulders really tight up against your ears. You want to have so much tension that it hurts. Up, up, up. Notice how that feels. And then on the exhale, drop your shoulders down your back, shoulder blades down your back. Relax everything. Feel your fingers just weighted down to the ground, your shoulders down to the ground. Notice how that feels. And take a big inhale. Fill your body full of air. And exhale. And just as a final thing, the next inhale, you want to scrunch up all the muscles in your face, clench your jaw, squint your eyes. Everything is tight, 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 tight. And notice how that feels. And on the exhale, release all that tension. All of your muscles are loose, relaxed, at rest. And take another really big inhale. Fill your body full of air. And exhale. So that's the jiffy version of it. A lot of the standard ones go from the top of your head all the way down your feet. When I was working with random performance coaches and stuff over the years, I learned this. There are plenty of like apps and stuff like that that you can download that'll do these kind of guided relaxation exercises. I primarily used it when I had insomnia, and I would do it, and I seriously, I kid you not, I start with my feet, and I think I never got like above like here, and then I'd be asleep. So I can vouch for the fact that it actually does work very nicely. So the point of all this, not only to help you with insomnia, but it's to be able for you to release tension on demand. So when you're on stage and all of a sudden you're feeling like I can't play my instrument maybe because my hands are just locked, you know how to be able to just get into the head space to relax your fingers, right? Or if you feel like all of a sudden your back is hurting because your shoulders are, you need to be able to do that. That's why it's really lovely to be able to harness the breathing with an action. Because again, everybody breathes. So you can like use the breath to kind of anchor behaviors that you want, rather than kind of using like kind of frantic breaths to sort of reinforce bad things that you don't want. Okay, anybody got any questions about any of that? I'm kind of going at a pretty fast clip, so if there's anything that I'm unclear about or you want more clarification, just shout it out. Okay, cool. So some of the mental aspects, this is actually my favorite part because like I said, my teacher in high school was the one that introduced me to visualization. It helped his golf game, it helped my performing. And it's called creative visualization. And some people call visualization the theater of the mind, which I love as a term because it allows me, I guess, to be like my most creative. And it's just as a thing, and I'm gonna just give you some ideas of things that I think about, but that's a me thing. So you have to be, I want this to like kind of inspire your own creativity. And it makes, the main point is that you get invested in what you create in your own head, so that the bad images or the things that might make you nervous don't have a chance to kind of rear their ugly heads. And what I found like is if you're on stage and you're really committed to that, like the thing that you've created in your head, that's the kind of thing that the audience will catch up on. So it's not necessarily that they get like what I'm thinking, but what they'll notice is that I'm 100% committed to what I'm doing and I'm invested in it. And that's the important part. I think more than anything else in performing, that's how you make like connections with audiences, is being able to like be invested in what you're trying to share with them. Not pulling back because your brain is clogged with a whole bunch of like, what if, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is creative visualization. So you have to have done like step 1, know the music. So you gotta know the music. It doesn't have to be perfect, like, those, 4 out of 5 things. If you got like a handle on it, go for it. I usually do the visualization like before I go to bed at night, but you do it without your instrument. So when you're relaxed, kind of just like away from everything else. Close your eyes, you do all the deep breathing and stuff that I just talked about. And it is visualizing your ideal performance. So what about a piece of music that you're working on speaks to you? What is it really? And then you're gonna set the stage. So like the theater of the mind. So I think if I have a important performance, like where am I? Like, okay, so I'm like right here, so I'm standing here. What does the stage look like? What are my surroundings? There are people in the audience. What does the hall, what's the ambience of the hall? Just physically, how do I feel? Like, how's my body feel when I'm on stage? And then I pick up my flute. What do my fingers feel like on the keys? How am I breathing? What am I doing? And then I go through my performance. And it's very similar, I believe, to like what athletes do, and they go through their ideal performance. So I feel like this is what the music is speaking to me. So in my head, I work a lot in like colors, like of sound colors. And again, it's not like the audience is gonna get that this is light blue, for example, like a kind of sound that I want. It's a light blue sound, but it's like, this is like something that means something to me. Just to like have a really like concrete example, like the opening of the Copeland Duo, which is Aaron Copland, American composer. His stuff is like just so uniquely, just with the harmonies and the melodies, beautiful flute writer, and essentially, quintessentially, there's something very pure and innocent and lovely about his music. And so the opening of it, and I kind of get like tear up when I get to this part. It just reminds me and like kind of a way of like growing up in Wisconsin. I grew up in the country, and I remember like these family reunions with like, when I'm really little, and like all my family. A lot of those people, like grandma and grandparents, they're gone, they're dead now. But I remember feeling like that I was a part of something bigger, that it was like a cool thing. And doing. And at that moment, if I'm not tearing up, I'm not nervous at all, because I have a really like strong idea of what that means to me. So you could think in terms of that. So you just want to go through your ideal performance in real time and kind of pay attention to what sort of images speak to you about that. It could be colors, it could be memories, it could be like anything fantastic. Well, it doesn't really matter, but it has to be something that matters to you. And you don't have to tell anybody, you don't have to, it's something really personal. And I think if you have that strong of a connection with what you're doing, that you can use that to kind of anchor your performance. And when I am performing, that helps me immensely, no matter how tired I am, or if something in the audience distracts me, or if I make a mistake. It keeps mistakes from cascading into like traumatic experiences, because you have something to kind of bring you back into like where you are. Does that kind of make any sense? Okay, good. Sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of going off on a little bit of a, like this kind of thing. And I mean, I guess the thing is that it's really personal, but I think as musicians, it's just so cool to be able to do that, to like use your own, like what makes you tick and throw it into a piece. Because it's uniquely you. And I think that's the other thing that as performers, nowadays, particularly when everyone is bombarded with, this, that, and the other thing, to kind of lose sight of who we are and what we can give to people. And everybody has a voice, and everybody has that they can share. And not many people do that. So I think if you can take that sort of risk and do that, that's really cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about creative visualization. I will quote you the pop psychology thing of like, psychologists say that it does take 3 weeks of this creative visualization to kind of like sink in your head. I mean, it could. I mean, you have to just kind of figure out how long it takes for you to do it. I do know that if I have something like kind of stressful, like a big concerto or something that I'm doing for memory, I absolutely do it, like spend like a good month or so before the performance, like thinking about that. And I do want to point out that it's one of those things that, yeah, a lot of times I start doing it and then I fall asleep. Or you start doing it, it's not like necessarily in real time with your, like the performance, it's more just kind of playing around with that creative side of your brain. So, the other part, I think, of like kind of getting in your own headspace is to monitor self-talk and use that for you instead of to reinforce negative thinking and negative behaviors. So for example, I'm just kind of thinking of like my own things, and you can come up with your own, things that you might tell yourself. But like a lot of times when I'm practicing and there's like, if I don't get enough air and then just the sound is bad, it's like, I don't get enough air, this just sucks. So, all right, so that's the thing. So what I've learned is that you say that, sound it out, like say what it is. And so you can like name it. And then what you do is turn it around and turn it like kind of on its side and come up with a positive thing. So for something like that, if I get enough air, this sounds beautiful. Something that is like an actual thing that you tell yourself that you're gonna do instead of sort of castigating yourself for like the dumb stuff that you do. Your brain does not work in negatives. So if you tell yourself not to do something, your brain has the picture of the image that you want done with a big red psychological X, but it's still the image of the bad behavior. So that's why you have to really think about like positive, like have a positive thing to tell yourself to do, right? And then, I would say if you kind of go through, I mean, you would know, all the things that you tell yourself better than I could come up with, and you could even like just make it a list and then have a counter argument for that positive statement. Make sense? Okay. Yeah, so those are kind of like the two things, and then it's just sort of a process and just kind of practice. It's that whole performing is not the same as practicing, but the more you do it, the better it gets. The other thing that you need to do once you do all of that stuff is to trust in the process. You learn how to brush your teeth and then you don't think about it. So you pretty much have to do the same thing. Obviously, performing is a much higher complexity thing, but it is essentially the same thing. You got to get out of your own way. So if you were to take a toothbrush right now and brush your teeth and like think about like every sort of minuscule thing, like, am I brushing my teeth correctly? Like, what happens if this is that? It would be a very sad toothbrushing experience. And it's like dumb, so like just don't do that. So, but the same thing kind of goes with like any other complex behavior. You have to kind of get out of your own way and trust that habits that we all have, whether or not they're good habits or bad habits, under pressure particularly, your habits will come out. So make them good habits, number one. Number two, don't micromanage your habits. You can do, especially when you're under pressure and you're trying to manage things and control things, is to pull things out of your intrinsic memory, like autopilot, and try and like think about it and do it. I'm trying to think what book this was. I believe this was one of Robert Sapolsky's books, and he's like sort of an expert on stress. And he has a really funny story about, I think he's like a tennis player, and one of the things that he used to do to psych like his friends out that he was playing tennis again, to be like, oh, that's like a really good serve you got. What exactly do you do to like get it like this? And so they'll start explaining it, and then right there when they were explaining like what their arm has to do and their hands have to do, like completely messes up their serves for the rest of the game. And that's a prime example of like taking something that's so intuitive and messing with it. So you gotta like get out of your head and just like trust in the process. Trust that your habits are gonna come to the forefront. So a lot of this stuff with like performance, preparation, it's just proper preparation and then letting things kind of unfold. I can speak a little bit about like auditions and competitions, and I'm just kind of thinking like what would be sort of pertinent for you guys. Do you guys do juries or recitals or anything? Okay. This is the kind of thing like all of your professors, because they love to do this and this is what they do. Like everybody provides like positive criticism. But I think it's also important to remember that, you know, everybody has their own perspective on things. And I have seen this, well, I'll just tell you a story and you can kind of like put this in the back of your head as sort of something to think about. So I've judged many competitions over the years. And this is one story that I share with my students who are kind of like a flute competition. And there were 2 finalists. And we had, there was a group of 3 judges. I was one of them. We were supposed to award first place and second place. And the first girl didn't have, her sound was a little unfocused. But she was very, very musical. So, wonderful. The second girl that played didn't have a whole lot of things to say musically, but had a beautiful sound. They finished playing. The judges were deliberating. So I was like, I'm always going to value like the musical quality. So she could have been nervous, like her, you know, the sound, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know, but I was like trying to argue my point. So to my lasting regret, the judge wore me down and I was like, fine, give like beautiful sound girl first place. Okay. Fast forward like maybe 5 years or so, and I'm talking with a friend of mine who had been a college teacher for many, many years. And we were going on with about our students, where are they now? Like what's going on? And this professor said, you know, many moons ago I had the most frustrating student because I tried everything that I could to kind of pull music out of her. And she had a beautiful sound, she was a lovely person, but she just had no musical, she just couldn't do it. And it turned out that it was that second judge that she was talking about. So I had a revelation in that second judge who was kind of putting her own feelings and kind of stamp onto what was good and valid and right when she herself was judging. It wasn't that she was a bad person or was trying to like, you know, really stick it to the girl that didn't have a good sound, but it was like, that is what she had heard from like her own professors, and like it just validated her, and that was the hill she was gonna die on. And I think that's really important as performers to know, and it's particularly as you kind of get higher up, and that like all of your teachers and you know, everybody's got like your best, like the reason that they're doing something that is a difficult job and helping you is that they want what's best, but everybody's got their own biases, and so it's always good to kind of not, I don't want to say not, listen to your teachers, they're really good, like kind of use your own common, listen to advice, but use your own common sense a little bit. However, with the caveat that if you have a whole bunch of professionals and teachers that you know have your best interest at heart, they're saying the exact same thing, even if you may not agree with it, you might want to take their words and think about it with a little bit of wisdom. so many unknowns because you don't know who's listening to you, and it's the judgment thing. Auditions are not fun. As I said, a soloist, so I haven't taken orchestra auditions. I have talked to I have a few friends in the Minnesota, so I'm from Minneapolis, so I have a few friends in the Minnesota Orchestra, and I was kind of, one of my favorite conversations was with the second trumpet, Bob Dorr, and he was talking about his experiences going through the audition circuit. So Minnesota Orchestra is, a very top orchestra. It's a premier job. And he worked his way up. And I think he was, if memory serves, he was a trumpet player in the Albuquerque Symphony. And he and his other trumpet buddies, they'd see each other always at the same orchestra auditions and stuff. And they had a really funny thing that worked for them. And as they were working, and you play, and it's behind the screen, and you get rejected, and it's like, oh. So they called themselves the Losers Club, and they would always go out for a beer afterwards. And their rule was, if anybody got the job and got the audition, that they paid for the round. And I think it was just a way for them to sort of bring some levity to the proceedings, and it made, there was a little bit of camaraderie, solidarity, a little bit of sense of humor, and that is definitely kind of high level performing. And we were talking about because I think there's this kind of odd, this feeling, especially in classical music circles, that you need to be perfect. What is perfect? I had a talk with the former principal flute of the London Symphony, Peter Lloyd, and we were talking about perfection in class, and he was saying that, and this is his own experiences, that the only perfect performance that he heard of Afternoon of a Faun was a very long time ago, and it was Peter Lucas Graf who had played it in an orchestra, and Peter Lloyd was in the audience, and he's like, that's the most perfect performance of Afternoon of a Faun. And then he turned to us and he was like, and then I went back the next night and it wasn't as perfect. And we all kind of laughed. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, who are you to say what's perfect and what's not? And number two, did you actually talk to the performer to see, did he think it was a perfect performance? Why substitute your judgment for somebody else? Who's more important? I don't know. But anyways, to bring it back to Bob and his trumpet audition stories, I asked him, so when you got this job with Minnesota Orchestra, did you have a perfect audition? And he thought about it for a moment, and he was like, yeah, I kind of felt like it was pretty much nearly perfect. And then I thought, is this kind of retrospective, it's perfect because you succeeded? And then if you had failed, would you have picked it apart that, oh, I could have done this better? So the whole thing just seems like a psychological thing. But yeah, definitely auditions are more stressful. Anybody else? Nothing. Anybody want me to expand on anything that I have said? Any burning questions? Tips and tricks? Nothing. Okay.
Anybody has any burning questions?
No. Then you guys can just all go forth and conquer. You got this. All right, I am done. I want to thank you so much for listening, and if you have any other questions at all, come up and ask. No problem. Thank you.